You have exactly 7 seconds before someone's brain decides who you are. In that window, people judge your intelligence, your status, and your trustworthiness, all before you finish your first sentence. Most people leave this to chance, but high-impact leaders use psychological principles to engineer a memorable first impression every single time. Today, I'm giving you the science-based playbook for conversations that stick. Here is how to master the first 7 seconds and become instantly unforgettable. The 7-second rule. Why first impressions are almost impossible to change once formed. The 7-second window is where impressions crystallize. The brain is scanning for friend or foe signals in that instant, evaluating faces, voices, and posture to decide whether to approach or withdraw. In that moment, the halo effect filter swings into action, letting warmth and competence lift or drag the whole read of a person. The emotional echo then solidifies a tonal memory, so what you project early on travels forward as a mood you're asked to live up to in subsequent exchanges. Facts aside, this is a primal script, quick judgments that feel almost genetic, not optional. First principle, signal safety and openness right from the start. Within those opening seconds, open posture matters as much as a smile that reaches the eyes. Direct, calm eye contact paired with a relaxed tone lowers defensive alarms and invites collaboration. A simple, authentic greeting, name, a brief nod, a reflected enthusiasm, sends a clear message that you're not a threat and that you're paying attention. Signals to avoid include crossed arms, rapid fidgeting, or a voice that sounds rushed or clipped. When practiced, small micromovements align with the brain's desire for predictability, and that predictability is what truthfully accelerates trust. Second principle, make intent and competence legible immediately. People judge usefulness within moments, so state your purpose succinctly and demonstrate the value you bring in a concrete way. A crisp opening line that names the problem you solve, followed by a precise next step, lands with less cognitive friction. Use simple, direct language and avoid jargon that can trigger confusion or suspicion. If you're introducing yourself in a meeting, a quick sentence like, "I help teams shorten decision cycles by clarifying next actions," sets expectations and activates the brain's readiness to cooperate. Clear structure, concrete outcomes, and minimal filler words reinforce the impression of competence rather than ambiguity. Third principle, maintain consistency across channels. The brain treats subtle discrepancies as warning signs, so your warmth, clarity, and tempo should feel the same whether you're in person, on video, or in writing. In a video call, eye contact means looking at the camera, not the image on your screen, and lighting should reveal facial expressions without harsh shadows. In person, keep your stance open and your hands visible. In an email, mirror that same tone of directness and helpfulness. When mismatches occur, slightly different energy between a live and a virtual interaction, the halo can twist toward doubt, and the emotional echo can wobble. Consistency minimizes that drift and preserves the initial trust you established during the 7-second window. Fourth principle, build an emotional arc that anchors memory. Humans remember not just facts but feelings tied to experiences. A short, vivid story or example can convert abstract claims into memorable sensations. Use sensory verbs and concrete outcomes to evoke curiosity, relief, or anticipation, so the listener stores your message as an emotionally resonant narrative rather than a cold proposition. The emotional echo is strongest when the emotional beat aligns with the practical takeaway, so conclude each mini-story with a tangible implication for the listener, a decision, a next step, or a measurable benefit. This pairing of emotion and consequence makes your message linger after the conversation ends. Fifth principle, ethical framing and adaptive microscripts. The quickest way to derail the 7-second read is to ignore social cues or push a one-size-fits-all approach. Read the room. If someone seems guarded, validate their concerns and offer a low-stakes next step. If they lean curious, lean into a concise demonstration or a quick experiment. Have ready, adaptable lines that fit different temperaments, such as, "Here's what I'll do next to help you decide," or "If this aligns with your priorities, we can map a simple path forward." The goal is to stay useful and respectful, not to overpower the other person with momentum. When you tune your approach to the other person's signals, you reduce friction and strengthen the chance that the initial impression grows rather than erodes. This constellation of principles reveals a practical playbook for high-impact conversations. The 7-second window is not a trap, but a doorway. It offers a chance to set a tone that travels with you, shaping how you're remembered long after the moment has passed. The signals you broadcast, safety, clarity, consistency, emotional resonance, and adaptive ethics, become the scaffolding of trust. When you hover on that edge with intention, you hack instinct, not by ignoring it, but by aligning with it in a way that feels authentic and useful. The result is not just a memorable moment, but a durable, workable connection that can endure the inevitable test of time. Principle 1. The Primacy Effect. Why the very first thing you say dictates the entire conversation. Initial impressions form within seconds as the brain categorizes new people along a friend or foe spectrum. The primacy effect makes that very first utterance dictate the tone of the entire exchange. In those early moments, the mind uses a rough timer, the 7-second window, to decide how much attention to grant you. The opening line then travels through what I call the halo effect filter, where one bright signal can falsely lift or dim perceptions of credibility, warmth, and competence. The emotional echo amplifies the memory of that first moment, so the opener isn't just heard once, it reverberates in how the conversation unfolds. The brain is scanning for safety, looking for signals that you are aligned with its goals. The trick is to hack this ancient circuitry without triggering resistance. Here are 5 principles designed to ride those instincts and make your first words memorable. First, craft a first line that blends competence, warmth, and relevance in a single breath. A razor-sharp opening shows you understand the other person's world and your place in it. Avoid generic compliments or vague promises. Specificity lands with more authority. For example, a meeting opener might be, "I've spent the last few weeks mapping bottlenecks in teams like yours, and I've found one pattern that slows momentum. I can outline a targeted fix in minutes." That sentence packs credibility, warmth, and relevance at once, and it travels through the brain as a coherent map rather than a scatter of ideas. Second, anchor that first line to a concrete outcome the listener values. The halo effect filter responds best when your opening signals a tangible benefit right away. Lead with what changes for them, not what you know. Try something like, "My goal is to remove one recurring friction you've been battling this quarter," rather than "I'm an expert in process improvement." The shift from abstract expertise to concrete impact makes the initial impression sturdier and easier to recall. Third, tune the emotional tone to evoke the emotional echo without tipping into manipulation. The first sentence should feel human and attentive, not slick or rehearsed. A calm confidence or curious receptivity can prime the listener to stay engaged. For instance, "I'm genuinely curious about what you're aiming to achieve this week, and I'm here to help you move faster toward it." The emotional texture matters as much as the facts, because emotion sticks and colors subsequent interpretations. Fourth, seed reciprocity early by signaling you're offering real value before asking for something in return. The earliest words should feel like a cooperative exchange rather than a one-sided pitch. Share a tailored insight or a concise diagnostic that demonstrates you've done your homework. Even a short line like, "Here's a quick, actionable takeaway based on your current challenge," can trigger reciprocal openness and reduce resistance. Fifth, deliver clarity and a bridge to action so the conversation doesn't stall after the initial impression. The first words should set a clear next step, avoiding ambiguity. End the opener with a precise plan or a simple fork in the road, a brief follow-up, a shared agenda, or a 3-bullet recap you will confirm. This creates a navigable path forward and lowers cognitive load, letting the listener respond with less friction and more engagement. Principle 2. The halo effect. How one positive trait, like confidence, makes people assume you are competent in everything. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where one positive trait colors all judgments about related attributes like competence. The brain is wired to treat social signals as rapid friend or foe cues, and first impressions take shape in a few seconds. In the 7-second window, signals of confidence and warmth land, and the rest of the conversation is interpreted through that initial lens. The halo effect filter compresses a spectrum of traits into a single impression. A confident posture or a warm smile can trigger a cascade where others infer you're capable across domains. This is not mere vanity. It's a fast, ancient shorthand your mind uses to decide where to invest attention. Principle 1. Lead in the opening seconds with a visible sign of both confidence and approachability. Stand tall, shoulders back, head level. A calm, varied voice projects assurance. A sincere, brief smile can soften the edge of scrutiny. These cues create an initial sense of safety and capability. The effect is immediate, and it colors how the next sentences are received. Principle 2. The halo effect filter demands signal alignment. Confidence must be corroborated by competence cues. If you're touting skill, you need a concrete, plausible plan or credential. A tight, clear example helps. "I guided a team through X approach and we achieved Y," without drowning the listener in jargon. Otherwise, the halo can crack under scrutiny, exposing any cracks in substance beneath the shine. The filter thrives on coherence between what you say and how you carry yourself. Principle 3. The emotional echo amplifies signal. Emotion travels through conversations and shapes memory. A measured enthusiasm invites engagement. A flat rhythm invites doubt. Your tone should match the stakes of the message, rising with significance and settling when the moment passes. The emotional echo lingers long after the words have faded, nudging memory toward a perception of capability that feels almost tangible. Principle 4. Consistency across cues creates a sturdier halo. Your words, posture, and visuals should align. A confident claim paired with a tremor in the voice or a shifting posture invites skepticism. Mismatches reduce the halo's durability. Keep your environment and materials tidy. Even small cues, your slide deck, your notes, the way you sit, send signals that reinforce or erode perception. Consistency reduces cognitive load, making your competence easier to infer. Principle 5. Strategic self-disclosure and social proof anchor the halo in reality. Offer brief, relevant credibility signals, like a concise achievement or a notable result. Pair it with social proof, a trusted colleague's endorsement or a shared connection. Prune vanity and maintain authenticity. The halo grows strongest when the audience feels you're credible and real. This combination keeps the impression grounded, so the perceived competence lasts beyond the initial spark. Principle 3. Emotional contagion. How to infect someone with your calm and authority instantly. The brain classifies newcomers as friend or foe in fractions of a second. This is a hardwired filter that colors every subsequent interaction. The 7-second window marks the moment when you plant the emotional tone that others will carry into the rest of the exchange. Emotional contagion works through facial cues, voice, and posture, rippling like a direct current from one nervous system to another. Your calm and your sense of authority can be infectious if you ride those ancient instincts rather than fight them. The halo effect filter will bend judgments in your favor when your early signals feel safe and steady. The emotional echo then repeats your mood back to you and to everyone listening, shaping what comes next. Shape your physiology to seed calm. The body leads the mind, and the mind follows where the body points it. A straight spine and relaxed shoulders broadcast safety before you even speak a word. Your breath anchors the room. Slow, controlled breathing keeps arousal low and attention high. Your movements become deliberate rather than reactive, and people notice the steadiness as much as your words. In a tense moment, you can anchor the room by showing up with a quiet power in your posture and pace, letting action precede argument. Your voice is a soft instrument that can dampen danger. A lower, steadier pitch reduces perceived threat and invites collaboration. Speaking with a measured cadence, clear, crisp consonants, spaced pauses, and no unnecessary hurry, gives others room to process. People interpret a calm voice as a signal that you have control and that the situation is navigable. A single well-placed pause after a critical point lands with more weight than a dozen rushed sentences ever could. The voice becomes a fence that keeps adrenaline from spilling into the conversation. Faces carry weather, and the right micro-moments set the tone. Relax your facial muscles, allow a small, genuine smile, and maintain a soft, attentive gaze. Eye contact should be steady but not piercing. It invites attention without triggering defensiveness. When the face communicates ease, the listener's shoulders drop and their own voice smooths out. The halo effect filter sharpens your impact. Calm plus openness is interpreted as competence, not sentimentality. Authenticity shows in tiny cues, so fake calm reads as hollow and fragile. Posture, space, and alignment finalize the contagion. Open chest, squared shoulders, and feet planted create a visual declaration of readiness to engage. Lean slightly toward the listener to signal interest, but avoid crowding or invading personal space. The way you orient your body, toward the speaker, toward the group, toward the issue, tells a story about where you stand. Subtle mirroring of another person's energy can build rapport, but keep your own center intact. Authority is a dance between alignment and boundaries. In practice, balance becomes the lever that turns calm into action. The emotional echo reframes tension into shared purpose. Reflect feelings back with precision, not flattery. Acknowledge anxiety or concern succinctly, then pivot to concrete next steps in a steady voice. Paraphrase key worries to show you heard them, and label emotions when they help diffuse the heat. The aim is not to erase emotion but to channel it toward collaboration. Your calm acts like a conduit. guiding the emotional current toward clarity and joint problem solving rather than spiraling into discord. When done well, the room settles into a new baseline, and the momentum of the conversation follows your lead rather than pushing back against it. Principle 4. High-status listening. Why saying less makes you appear more intelligent. Within the first moments of contact, the brain sorts signals as friend or foe with remarkable speed. The 7-second window is a mental anchor, a brief phase where impression storage happens before words fully land. High-status listening leans into that window. Restraint and silence are not emptiness but landmarks that say you are in control. After you finish speaking, a measured pause invites a response rather than a rush to fill the air. In a tense meeting, that pause can signal confidence and invite collaboration rather than dominance, and people tend to fill the space with useful clarifications. One precise question acts like a compass needle, steering the conversation toward what matters most. Instead of a flood of comments, you pose a single, sharp probe that reframes the agenda. This invites the other person to articulate priorities and constraints, creating a clear map for next steps. The effect is not about collecting more words, it's about extracting clarity with minimal verbal baggage. When you ask, you show you're listening with intent, not just replying, and that small act is read as seasoned judgment. Verbal economy is a silent, intelligent signal. Choose words with care, drop hedges, and avoid filler that dilutes impact. Saying, "We should consider these 3 options" carries more weight than "I think we might, perhaps, want to consider a few options." Short, purposeful statements project competence and reduce opportunities for misinterpretation. The halo effect filter amplifies this. Concise, confident language colors perceptions of capability, so teammates and clients infer smarter thinking from fewer, cleaner phrases. Tempo and non-verbal cues complete the package. Speak at a deliberate pace, letting pauses breathe space for others to contribute. A calm voice, open posture, steady eye contact, and a few purposeful nods signal that you're present and secure. These signals push the brain's readings toward trust and collaboration, reinforcing friend signals while attenuating faux cues. The emotional echo lands here. People remember how you make them feel more than the exact words you used, so your listening style becomes a memory of poise and reliability rather than a moment of loudness. Finally, precision in reflections seals the understanding. After you've listened, summarize succinctly what you heard and outline the next move with a concrete cadence. A compressed recap shows you've internalized the core concern and aren't guessing at meanings. Echo the emotional tone you detected briefly to demonstrate empathy without drifting into sentimentality. This combination, accurate capture, decisive next steps, and a touch of resonance, creates a lasting impression that you are trustworthy, capable, and in command of the conversation. Principle 5. The peak end rule. Why the way you exit a conversation is just as important as how you enter. Conversations are remembered by their final moments. The peak end rule says people judge an interaction largely by the last part and by the most intense moment, stacking those signals into a single memory. The brain is constantly scanning for friend or foe signals, and the exit becomes a decisive cue in that fast, ancient vetting process. The 7-second window is a useful mental frame. The moment you separate, everything you've done before floods the recall with sharper clarity. The exit should deliver warmth, competence, and clarity in a tight, high-signal package. This is where memory banks are opened or closed. First principle, end with a concrete next step and a warm sign-off. The exit should crystallize what happens next, not leave it ambiguous. A line like, "I'll send the summary by noon tomorrow, and we can pencil in 15 minutes next week," anchors action and signals reliability. Follow that with a brief show of appreciation, such as, "I value your time and your perspective," and then disengage with a calm, confident posture. Short, specific directives reduce cognitive load. They also activate the brain's desire for closure, expediting a sense of control in the listener. The emotional echo starts here, in the precise phrasing of what comes next. Second principle, leave a positive emotional residue to trigger the emotional echo. Endings that carry gratitude, recognition, or genuine warmth stick longer. Acknowledge a specific contribution. Your point about the data pivot was insightful. Pair it with a hopeful option. "I'm excited to test that approach with the team." The halo around your exit filters into the overall impression, so a warm tone travels beyond the few seconds of conversation. Even in brisk exchanges, a small halo can cascade into a favorable memory, shaping how the entire interaction is later recalled. Third principle, Use the halo effect filter by aligning the exit with shared goals and credibility cues. Tie the closure to a common objective and name a credible anchor for trust, a metric, a standard, a mutual deadline. Say, we both want to reduce friction in onboarding. I'll draft a concise plan with risk factors and a rollout timeline. Maintain alignment between what was discussed and what you present at the exit. Non-verbal cues matter too. Eye contact, a steady handshake, and an open posture reinforce the textual signal. When the exit echoes your stated values, the listener's memory filters integrate the moment as a coherent extension of your prior behavior. Fourth principle, establish a closing cue or ritual to signal closure. A repeatable line or ritual creates certainty and reduces ambiguity about whether the conversation is truly over. It could be a consistent phrasing like, "That covers the main points. I'll follow up with X," paired with a deliberate pause and a nod. Rituals enhance recall by creating a cognitive tag. The brain notes, "This is how we finish." The ritual should be simple, genuine, and adaptable to context. It should feel natural rather than contrived, so the brain doesn't register it as performative noise. Fifth principle, make the next touchpoint explicit and valuable to create a future-facing memory. Offer a tangible resource, a scheduled check-in, or a concrete artifact that the listener can act on. For instance, I'll share a one-page memo with key metrics and a proposed pilot by Friday. If you want to adjust priorities, we can lock in a 20-minute sync next Tuesday. Framing exits with a forward-looking promise turns the moment into momentum, which the brain happily stores as anticipation rather than a fade-out. The emotional and cognitive load is lightened when the listener feels there is a purposeful path after the conversation. The memory becomes less about how the goodbye sounded and more about what follows. The neuroscience of names. Why the sound of someone's own name is the most persuasive sound in the world. Your name is a highly salient personal signal that the brain treats as unusually self-relevant. The acoustic pattern of a name acts as a neural beacon, pulling attention through the cocktail party filtering system that tags words as friend or foe. When the name lands, the brain flags it as personally meaningful, triggering the same networks involved in processing emotion and social relevance. The result is a rapid, almost reflexive shift in how we evaluate the speaker. This is the core of the self-relevance that underpins first impressions and long-term memory of an interaction. The emotional echo this sparks can linger, tinting judgments long after the moment has passed. First principle, name salience activates attention and memory encoding. The brain doesn't treat a name as just sound, it marks it as a personal tag. Repetition of a name in conversation strengthens neural connections tied to that person, making the interaction easier to recall and more emotionally resonant later. When a recruiter greets a candidate by name and reminds the room who the person is, engagement surges. In classrooms, instructors who use students' names within the first few minutes see higher participation and a more favorable perception of approachability. The mechanism is simple. Self-relevance boosts attention, and attention stabilizes memory into lasting impressions. Second principle, use the name early to leverage the 7-second window. The first moments of an encounter are a hot microzone where judgments form quickly. Addressing someone by name within the opening sentences shifts the dynamic from generic to personal, signaling recognition and value. A salesperson who opens with, "Alex, great question. Here's how this fits your needs," nudges the brain toward a cooperative interpretation of the exchange. The person feels seen, and the conversation gains momentum before defenses can rise. In practice, a quick, name-linked framing reduces ambiguity and accelerates rapport, which compounds as the interaction unfolds. Third principle, tap the halo effect filter by aligning name familiarity with positive associations. Names carry cultural orbit and phonetic warmth that can color trust and warmth judgments. A name that sounds familiar or is pronounced with care can trigger faster warmth judgments than an anonymous label would. Mispronouncing a name or treating it casually signals neglect and can trigger caution or withdrawal, a subtle but real dampener on rapport. The upshot is clear. Correct pronunciation, even when it requires asking, communicates respect and competence, shaping the baseline tone of the entire exchange. Fourth principle, harness the emotional echo through prosody. The sound of the name, the tempo, pitch, and timbre with which it is delivered, feeds back into memory and liking. A name spoken with warmth or a slight upward inflection can amplify perceived sincerity and approachability. Conversely, flat or harsh delivery can mute those positive signals, creating a cooler, more distant impression. The brain links the emotional contour of the voice to the identity tag the name carries, reinforcing a favorable or unfavorable impression in a single moment. A simple, authentic smile paired with a gently modulated voice when saying a name often yields outsized effects on connection and recall. Fifth principle: practical hacking with ethical restraint. Use names as anchors for memory and alignment, not as gimmicks. Confirm pronunciation early, invite the person to correct you if needed, and repeat the name at key turning points in the conversation, when summarizing decisions, when laying out next steps, and when closing. Pair the name with a concrete, relevant detail to strengthen the memory trace. Alex, your approach to scalable testing is exactly what we need, and I'll loop you in on the deployment plan. Avoid over-reliance or insincerity. When the name feels performative, the brain notices and the emotional echo dampens. The most effective practice is consistent, respectful use that aligns with genuine attention to the person's apparent goals and concerns. In the end, the sound of a name is more than a label. It's a neural invitation, a cue that taps primal social machinery and sets the tone for how a person will be perceived in the moment and remembered afterward. When used with precision and care, naming becomes a compact, powerful tool for shaping high-impact conversations. The brain is scanning for friend or foe signals, and a well-delivered name can tilt the circuitry toward trust, collaboration, and memorable connection. Common traps: the imposter twitch and how to eliminate it from your body language. The brain is looking for friend or foe signals in the first moments of contact, and it sifts through cues at a pace that leaves little room for doubt. The 7-second window is not a mystical deadline but a practical battleground where microsignals fuse into a first impression. The halo effect filter then takes over, allowing a strong initial signal to color everything that follows. The emotional echo lingers, tinting memory and future judgments with the tone set in those opening seconds. In this space, the imposter twitch becomes a telltale trap, a subtle, uncontrollable flick or shift that hints at insecurity or inauthenticity. The goal is to recognize it, dampen it, and replace it with signals that reveal a confident, credible self. Principle 1 centers on grounding the body to silence the imposter twitch before it speaks for you. Stand with feet hip-width apart, shoulders relaxed, chest open, and chin level. When the urge to tremble or fidget appears, slow your breathing with a calm diaphragmatic inhale lasting a beat longer than the exhale. Let the breath anchor your stance, and notice the difference between a tense body and a ready one. A subtle shoulder drop, not a slump, communicates steadiness. A simple, practice tactic is a 3-count inhale, a 2-count hold, and a longer exhale. In real life, you'll notice less jitter in the hands and more control over your gaze. The imposter twitch dissolves when the body shows up in alignment with the message. Principle 2 asks you to align facial signals with the substance you want to convey. The eyes should connect with the other person in a way that invites trust without staring into the abyss. A steady, warm gaze helps the listener feel seen. Darting eyes or abrupt shifts signal unease. A measured smile matters too. Not a forced grin, but a genuine, Duchenne smile that engages the eyes as well as the mouth. Keep facial muscles relaxed enough to avoid microtensities that betray nerves. When you speak, let your expressions rise and fall with emphasis rather than riding a flat, rehearsed mask. The face acts as an automatic credibility amplifier or dampener, and if it doesn't harmonize with your words, the halo effect filter will filter you as less trustworthy than you intend. Principle 3 focuses on voice and rhythm, because the auditory channel often seals or sabotages first impressions before a listener even processes your content. Speak with clarity, but avoid a performative tempo that sounds rehearsed. A calm pace, slight pauses after key points, and a varied pitch convey confidence and thoughtfulness. If you feel the imposter twitch in your voice, perhaps a quiver at the end of a sentence, drill in a small, steady anchor. Finish statements with a firm, purposeful tone and let your volume rise and fall with meaning, not nerves. Short, decisive sentences mixed with longer, explanatory ones create a dynamic rhythm that listeners remember. The emotional echo is tempered when your voice maintains control, signaling steadiness even under questioning or pressure. Principle 4 leverages eye contact and intentional gaze patterns to combat the instinct to retreat or overcompensate. The eye line should invite collaboration, not dominate the room. Use a natural triangle pattern, glance to one interlocutor, then the other, cycling through without fixating on a single person. Too little eye contact reads as disinterest. Too much can feel aggressive. Pair gaze with nods and brief, non-verbal confirmations to indicate listening. The imposter twitch often triggers a microshift away from engagement. Counter it by keeping the head steady and the gaze warm. The room reads your confidence partly through how you distribute attention and how you respond to questions with a calm, attentive stare. Principle 5 centers on environmental and strategic signals that shape the first frame before you even speak. Dress and posture align with the situation, reducing cognitive dissonance in the listener. A clean, appropriate appearance signals credibility and reduces the chance that the halo effect will suspend judgment unfairly. Space matters too. Position yourself at a comfortable distance, open stance, and avoid crossing arms or tucking hands away. Use purposeful gestures to punctuate points rather than fidgeting with objects or clothing. Your environment and your ready posture together create a backdrop that invites trust, making the first impression memorable for the right reasons. The imposter twitch fades when your body and space communicate that you belong in the moment. In practice, these 5 principles work as a coherent system. You begin by grounding the body to prevent involuntary tells. You then synchronize facial signals with your message, so the face and the words form one credible chorus. You fine-tune voice and rhythm to keep the listener engaged and to mute the emotional echoes that distort perception. You manage gaze with intention to foster connection rather than distance. Finally, you shape the surrounding frame, because the halo you project in the first seconds sets the tone for everything that follows. When these elements align, the brain's ancient friend or foe detectors reset toward curiosity and openness, and the imposter twitch loses its grip. What remains is a presence that is remembered, trusted, and ready for the conversation that follows. Influence is engineered. Start your next 7 seconds with intention. Within 7 seconds, the brain begins tagging your presence as friend or foe. This window, the 7-second window, is where quick judgments crystallize and set the tone for everything that follows. The halo effect filter nudges those judgments, biasing how competence and warmth are perceived from minute cues. The emotional echo lingers, turning the tonal shade of your voice and facial expression into a memory that shapes future interactions. Influence is engineered. Start your next 7 seconds with intention. First, frame your entrance with a crisp, outcome-focused line. A single declarative statement can tilt the whole reception in your favor. For example, you might say, "I help teams turn ambiguity into actionable plans." That kind of clarity lowers the brain's ambiguity threshold and invites a listening ear. The halo effect filter amplifies warmth and confidence when the opener lands well, and the impression can carry into follow-ups even after the moment passes. Keep the opener tight and explicit. It buys you time to shape the rest of the interaction. Second, cultivate physical warmth and congruence. Stand with open shoulders, face the other person squarely, and maintain a steady, relaxed gaze. A genuine, soft smile and a firm but not overbearing handshake set safety signals in motion. Let your body announce your intent: calm, engaged, and present. Third, sculpt your sound. Tone, pace, and rhythm matter as much as words. Speak with a warm but controlled timbre. Vary pace to emphasize ideas, and pause to give the listener space to absorb. The emotional echo strengthens when you punctuate points with brief silences that let emotion attach to the message. Fourth, anchor your message with micronarratives. Tell a tiny 3-beat story that frames a challenge, an action, and a favorable outcome in a sentence or 2. For example, we faced a bottleneck in the workflow. We simplified the steps, and the team regained momentum. Stories are easier to remember than bullets. They cross the friend or foe threshold more effectively. Fifth, seal impressions with consistency and follow through. After the talk, send a concise recap with concrete next steps. Show up on the ground with the commitments you promised. Over time, the halo effect filter relies on reliability. Let your actions match your words, and the emotional tone you set persists. Conversations are not random sparks. They're calibrated signals you can tune. The brain is scanning in what I call the 7-second window, deciding in that fleeting moment whether you're friend or foe. The aim is to hack these ancient instincts, to present safety, relevance, and value in ways the nervous system recognizes instantly. Here are 5 principles that make your words land and your presence linger. 1. The 7-second window. Lead with warmth, clarity, and a singular through line. In the first 7 seconds, your face, posture, tone, and opening idea should align to deliver one unmistakable impression. You're confident, you're helpful, you're worth listening to. Don't clutter the opening with details or ambiguity. Unleash a crisp purpose and a human warmth that invites curiosity. 2. The halo effect filter. Make signals across cues reinforce each other. If your posture says "I'm open," your voice should sound sure, your words should feel competent, and your facial expression should mirror your intent. When these cues line up, the brain routes to a favorable quick judgment, and everything you say next benefits from that initial glow. 3. The emotional echo. Hook memory with a vivid, relevant story that lands emotionally. People remember feelings more than facts, so craft a microarc that carries a universal resonance. The echo of that emotion makes your point stick, and it gives your listener a reason to carry your message forward beyond the moment of contact. 4. The friend or foe signals. The brain is busy classifying signals as safe or threatening. You hack that instinct with non-threat language, obvious relevance, and social proof. Use language that invites collaboration, acknowledge shared goals, and pepper incredible cues from others who align with your message. A touch of mirroring, done sparingly, can reduce friction and invite engagement rather than resistance. 5. The relevance framing. Make the message instantly useful and easy to grasp. Replace abstractions with concrete visuals, vivid metaphors, and a crisp takeaway that the listener can act on. End with a clear benefit so the brain sees immediate value, not just information to store. Direct summary of key points. You have 5 actionable levers: the 7-second window, the halo effect filter, the emotional echo, the friend or foe signals, and the relevance framing, that work together to turn first impressions into lasting influence. If you're watching this, you're already on the path to conversations that don't just happen, they land. You're choosing to sharpen the instinct rather than wrestling with it. So try one principle in your next interaction. Open with the 7-second window, or thread the emotional echo into a story, and notice what shifts in the room. Leave a comment with a quick example, or share a recent moment where a small signal changed the outcome. For future videos, I'll bring real-life tests, microscripts, and quick critiques of actual conversations so you can see these principles in action. We'll dissect what works, what doesn't, and how to tailor these ideas to your own voice and goals. Until then, keep the signals clean and the conversation sharper.